All right, if everyone could take their seats, we'll go ahead and continue. All right, for those of you that are watching via television, we lost power briefly, but we are back up and going. So we're coming back from about a quick 5-minute break. Mr. Warnett had just spoken and given a presentation regarding item number 7, and I was asking if there was any further comment from the public. Anyone else like to speak on this topic? All right then, let's go ahead and move to council. Council discussion or a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, the live feed is still down, just FYI.
Live feed is still down?
Can you speed that up a little bit?
Perfect. Okay, let's see who's up. I know my screen had to reset. Council discussion, has anyone posted a request? Councilman Foreman?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the recommended motion. I'll go ahead and make the recommended motion. It is hereby moved that the City Council approve proposed ordinance 16-28-PC and direct staff to schedule the proposed ordinance for final adoption and a public hearing on second reading.
Second. Okay. Councilman Braden with the second. Up first for discussion, Mr. Destin.
Mr. Warnett, may I ask you a real brief question? You had mentioned that you were going to re-drill the well that was existing there and then also storage. Does that mean a water tower? Or is there alternate? I just wanted to know what kind of infrastructure.
That's currently under study, and we don't know exactly whether it'll be a water tower or a tank.
The only question I had.
Council, any further discussion? All right then, if y'all would like to go ahead and we'll call for the vote. And it passes unanimously. All right, moving on. Public opportunity to speak on council propositions number 8, 9, 10A, 18B, 18C, or 20A. I do have a blue card. It was from Mr. Bagby, but I see he has left the building. So we'll move on. Any other cards, Mr. Bailey? All right then. Moving right along, number 8 is a resolution. Resolution 16-31 is an extension of agreement with Merlin's Pizza to provide concessions at Morgan Sports Center and the Destin Sports Complex during city-sponsored events. Let's see. City Attorney?
Resolution 16-31, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Destin, Florida, renewing the exclusive concessions agreement for calendar year 2017 between the City of Destin and Merlin's Pizza, Inc., providing for an effective date and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement extension for and on behalf of the City of Destin.
City Manager?
Yes, ma'am. The Parks and Recreation Department for the City of Destin has outsourced concession services for the past 12 years. If approved, this would be the third of 5 annual renewal options for the concession agreement with Merlin's Pizza. As you can see in the backup documentation, that Merlin's Pizza, we started contracting with them in 2014, and through those 3 years up until 2016, we receive $600 annually plus a 15% of gross sales monthly, and we have been increasing every year the amount of revenue that we've been receiving from Merlin's Pizza. So staff is recommending that we continue on this third option to renew Merlin's Pizza as our concession provider.
All right, council, motion or comment?
Mayor, I'll make the motion. I move to approve Resolution 16-31-REC, extending the concession agreement with Merlin's Pizza for the period beginning January 1st, 2017 and ending December 31st, 2070, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement extension on behalf of the city.
Okay, a first by Councilman Destin and a second by Councilman Morgan. Any further discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. Okay, it passes unanimously. All right, number 9, we have already heard. It was moved up, so we're on to project reports and comments from council and mayor. Councilman Braden, go ahead and start with you.
Thank you. I had fireworks under my name tonight, but I'm going to postpone that till next council meeting. Frankly, my blood's boiling too bad right now to discuss that or anything else. There was an incident that happened at the last LPA meeting with staff, and something happened again tonight with staff. So I would rather ask the city manager, would you please call me first thing in the morning so I can meet with you, please?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I'm available after the meeting if you like also.
We can meet tomorrow, it's fine.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Foreman?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question. On the 15th of December, I'm scheduled to be meeting, which will be here at 3 o'clock. And so I need to ask that the alternate for the TPO represent the city on that date.
Is that you, Councilman Destin?
No, I'm the second, so I think...
Do we know who the alternate is for that committee?
I think it's either the 15th. It's the I think it's a Wednesday, and it's at 3 o'clock here. 3 o'clock. Thank you. That's all I have.
Do you have the email about the meeting, Ray, somehow? Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Foreman?
No, I have nothing else.
Okay, Councilman Marlar?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple of things. We had the annual Christmas tree lighting last Thursday, the 1st, to kick off our Christmas in Destin, and everything went very well. We had a good crowd there, including our new city manager, and Councilman Morgan was there also, and the mayor. And Mr. Foreman popped in a little bit later after I'd already announced everybody. But we had a good time. Everything went real great, so we're happy with that. And also the following night, the Matty Kelly concert, Sounds of the Seasons, was held at Village Baptist. Overflowing crowd there, and everything went great. Had an awesome violinist, Lori Smith, who was there, and she's from South Florida. And let's just say that if you've never heard a violin played a certain way, you need to look her up. Emerald Coast Magazine had an article on her in their current magazine, and she was very good, and we're looking forward to the parade this coming weekend. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir, and I guess I'll go ahead and go. I am so sad to be mad about you guys. Hopefully, we'll be past all this rain, and, well, I'd rather be cold than wet, or perhaps either one. But, yeah, I'll be thinking about you guys, and I'm sorry I can't be there this year. Councilman Destin?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I don't have much other than a brief question, and I should have asked Ms. Lejeune this morning, but where do we stand status-wise on the feasibility study of the Gulf Power acquisition?
Yes, sir. We have the RFP written. It has been reviewed by our bid committee, and we were going to release it on the street right after the holidays. It's my understanding that it won't get any attention if we put it out right now.
Makes sense. Okay, other than that, I think that's all I've got. I look forward to seeing everybody at the parade on Saturday.
Councilman Morgan?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a few things. I am excited, not excited, but I was looking forward to a discussion on fireworks. It's something that I've been looking to do for quite a while. Also, I was at the Christmas tree lighting, and my hat is off to Kyron Marlar. That was an unbelievable job. I've told him that about 6 or 7 times. But not only is he an incredible singer, I know he can't pray up here anymore or give the invocation, but maybe if we could work it into where he gives a song or something before the meetings to kind of
Star
set the
Spangled
tone.
Banner one day?
Because it was unbelievable, and he worked the crowd. He had the kids. It was, you know, the event was for the kids, and he had the kids falling out of their seats laughing, and he can work a crowd. And I believe it's his 50th annual city Christmas celebration.
Yeah, before we were a city, we had a Christmas program on Christmas Eve at the old Destin Elementary School that I grew up with, and when I was about age 9, I kind of got thrust into the emceeing at age 9, along with the late Betty Najarian and her husband Zovac Najarian, who was one of the council members here. But the actual situation started in 1915, and we ended that particular portion of it in 1992, and the city had started the Christmas tree lighting, which was their 30th, and so I'm proud to be a part of that and help continue the tradition of Christmas in Destin.
Oh, you
And
should.
thank you for your words.
You should be
comments.
proud. You do a wonderful job.
Thank you, sir.
Looking forward to the Christmas parade, and I would just like to remind everyone about our cell phone policy. Thank you. That's it.
All right, so Mayor Fisher is not here this evening. He had to attend a party, I believe, with the governor. So, yeah, darn him. All right, so moving on, city attorney comments?
Yeah, I have two things tonight. The first is I need to announce an executive session pursuant to Section 286.011, subsection 8, Florida statutes. And it's set for December 19th at 5 p.m., and it'll be a meeting, executive session of the City Council, and it will be involving the lawsuit of Mary Jo Portel versus the City of Destin and the Circuit Court, First Judicial Circuit, N4, Okaloosa County, Florida, case number 2015-CA-002554C. And then the second issue I was going to address, there's a memorandum, I believe that Ray would have distributed to everyone earlier this week, and it was also in the agenda packet. And it was an issue that was raised by both Councilman Braden and Councilman Marler during my interview, and then it's been raised a couple other times since to me. And to sum up the memorandum, I was asked to look into the issue of what level of involvement city council members can have in other board meetings. And my memorandum kind of sets it all out pretty clearly, but really and truly the biggest issues that the city council needs to be aware of are ex parte communications, and those would really only be an issue in any quasi-judicial hearing. So that'd be if you go to an LPA meeting and it's a quasi-judicial matter that the LPA is actually considering, there's an issue with ex parte communications that some of the case law is considered. And the easiest way to avoid making an ex parte communication is basically the city council member on those type of meetings would need to show up and just kind of not talk to anybody on that issue. And that means any member of the public and any of the LPA members directly, just kind of be a fly on the wall in those type of meetings. But that's really the only participation limitation that there is, and it's set forth in the memo. The other issue is a sunshine law issue. If there's two city council members actually at one of these meetings, then there needs to be some sort of notice that, and they communicate with each other during the meeting on city business, then that could be a sunshine law violation if there's no notice to the public. And that actually, I was talking to another attorney, and they said, brought up a good point, that on all the LPA notices that go out in the future, there could just be a little line on there making the public aware that city council members may attend the meetings. And if you do that, that would actually cure that issue of the notice, and that probably wouldn't be that difficult to do that. The main issue, though, that I bring this up to you tonight, other than just sending you the memorandum, some of the other heads, one in particular of one of the other boards, actually pulled me aside before my first meeting at that board and said if any city council member attended the meeting that night, that he would go and shut the meeting down immediately and kick everyone out of the room. So I think there needs to be some direction from the city council, and I think the easiest thing would be maybe I come back with a resolution at the next city council meeting, or staff could do it if staff wants to take that burden on. Just kind of setting forth a kind of a rough draft policy for city council attending these meetings, just so the other heads of the other boards know that you can attend the meeting. And I think a resolution would probably be the easiest thing to do, adopting a policy, and I could probably take a stab at that if the city council so directs me to.
We would like for the city attorney to take the stab at it rather than direct staff.
I didn't want to steal your thunder. So.
I concur with that, and I would, so it all boils down to council members may attend meetings, but they cannot speak to each other because that can be construed as a sunshine violation about the business at hand.
That's the easiest. I would say don't ever speak to each other, but like I
Yeah.
said, if you actually noticed the meeting that the city council members would be present, they actually could talk to each other about it if you put in the notice that city council members may attend and discuss the matter. And there's a way we could word it. And it's possible, I don't know, I've never looked at the LPA notices from Ray. It might be possible to do something like that, and I don't want to put him on the spot tonight, so I'll probably talk to him afterwards about that. But if it's something that doesn't cost the city too much more, then that issue could actually probably be worked around through a simple change on notices. Now, where you'd run into a problem, though, is maybe like one of the Harbor CRA Advisory Board, one of the boards that doesn't have a public notice, or that's if two of y'all show up and start talking about what they're talking about at that meeting, that is a sunshine law violation.
So don't talk.
So don't talk.
To
yeah.
one another, yeah. Councilman Foreman.
Okay. I'm trying to recall which ordinance it is. I think it's 13 or something like that. And it deals with the committees. And at one time, the council appointed a liaison from the council for the sole purpose of periodically attending a committee meeting, not necessarily to transact any business, but to be there and to be available to any committee members that might want to talk to them on some subject which they wanted to bring back to the council. And we did that. I was that liaison at one time. I think Sandy Trammell became that person later on. And to some degree, it was effective because where they had some difficulties with certain types of, let's say, projects or communications or things of that sort, then you can make a note of it and bring it back and bring it up at the council meeting. But I simply brought that up because it resulted in some changes to the committee structures at that time. That's when we changed from the Planning and Zoning Commission to the local planning agency as a result of those visits and conversations. So you might want to look at that ordinance and see if it has any bearing upon what you're doing.
Is that a resolution, though, too, or was that an ordinance you were, okay.
I have a question, and maybe that's towards my fellow council, but I thought when we each had the empowerment to appoint someone to different councils, that was our liaison, that person would then come back and say, this is what we discussed, and this is what might be of interest, et cetera.
We nominate, the council appoints. So the council actually appoints each of the members to those committees. All of us do. But we each nominate a person. I guess you could do it that way too, I don't know.
So, consensus to recommend rough draft policy?
Please do.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Marlar.
I just wanted to add what Mr. Foreman was talking about, and we may run into this problem depending on how we're going to do the comp plan, because when we changed it and made the LPA as not as forceful, we had quasi-judicials for the planning department, and we had to do the same thing, and I remember the Home Depot issue very well after 24 hours of, not continuous, but 24 hours of testimony that they had, plus then we had the same thing. To me, and it was an unwritten rule when I took office, it was never written down, but it was pretty much consensus that anything that any of these committees discuss could come before us, and if we convolute it by making an opinion or hearing something we don't hear, and the adage I put to Jeff was very simple. I said, if you're on a jury and one of the attorneys is very crafty and says something and the other attorney objects, and the judge says, jury, disregard what you just heard, you can't. It's there. You hear it, you go back into the back room, and sooner or later that's going to come up, even though it says you're not supposed to remember it. It's already in your brain. So if we had a situation where some opinion was formed at that meeting, then it wouldn't be the fair thing to do once an item reached us. So that was the main reason I asked Jeff to look into that, was for that reason, because I do feel that when the council appoints these people and everything, that they should operate independently of us and be exactly what it says in the advisory board. We don't necessarily have to take their advisory, and the Home Depot issue, which Mr. Theriak at that time was our city land use attorney, he and the staff was against the Home Depot, and we had to be, it's kind of weird, but we had to be the judge and the jury, which is the way the quasi-judicial works. So to me, it just feels like, in my point of view, that the council should not attend these meetings. And I personally do that only because I don't think it would be right for me to hear something that I don't need to hear until it comes forward. So that's my personal opinion, that I think we should stay away from these meetings unless there's a real need to be there.
Anyone else? Oh, Councilman Braden?
Thanks. I understand Councilman Mahler's view on this, and I respect that. But in the same fashion, if I have, if I can go to attend these meetings, I'm going to go attend them myself. If there's not a problem with it, then I'm going to go, because we don't hear anything that goes on in those meetings. What we get, because I've attended the meetings, I've read them in our little packet that we get in our boxes, and I've read them online, and it's two different things. You go to that meeting, sit in it, and just be a fly on the wall. It's night and day. We'll never hear what goes on in those meetings. So, I respect his feelings on that and his wishes, but if I can go to them and there's no problem with it, then I haven't attended one in a while, but if I want to go attend one and I have the right to do that, then I feel like I should and I will. Thanks.
Thank you for your research. I know I attended fairly frequently different meetings and actually was asked to leave a couple of them. So thank you for doing this research and presenting it and giving us all a clear perspective on what is lawful and what is not.
And just in the previous city attorney's defense, just if you listen to this, his policy might have made a little bit of sense just in the long run, because he would have had to re-educate every city council, and I could see him maybe just taking a position after a while that was easier to say, don't attend all the meetings, but that's technically not the law. So.
Thank you. Anything further? Mr. Burns? All righty then. Next up, we have our city manager comments.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I have the one that was in the agenda, but then I also have a few others that have come up since this was published. The first one, the quotes versus RFP for paid parking. At the last city council meeting, the council had voted to direct the city manager to go out to RFP for a paid parking vendor. This is in conflict with our purchasing policy. The total amount that would ever be paid to a vendor within a year's time would be less than $15,000. I'm asking if council would redirect the city manager to go out and get the required number of quotes for the paid parking vendor rather than the RFP.
Certainly. I'll make the motion if that needs to be formalized into a motion. I don't see a click on, but
Okay.
Second, anyone? Second from whomever we want to take it from. Mr. Foreman, any discussion? Do you need a formal vote? Or just a consensus?
Do I need, because it was voted last time as an RFP? Okay, great. No, ma'am, thank you. That's great.
Perfect. then.
So the next item is something that I had discussed with the city attorney, Mr. Burns, and I would like to know if council would be interested in us bringing back at the next meeting a ordinance establishing a moratorium on a BTR issuance for cannabis dispensaries. And the reason that we think this might be a good idea is because we've already established where in the city a medical marijuana dispensary or cannabis dispensary can be located. We do not have right now a regulatory framework that allows us to license a cannabis dispensary because the state of Florida does not have a regulatory framework to get a Florida business license for this. What a moratorium would do is allow time for the state legislature during this session to come forward with their regulatory framework that would allow businesses to get a business license for a dispensary, and then we could in turn create our regulatory framework for the issuance of a BTR. So I would just need to have a consensus from council that you would be interested in us bringing this back at the next meeting, and then you could actually have the discussion and vote on whether or not you would like this to happen. And Mr. Burns was going to assist us with the writing of the moratorium language.
Council, what are your thoughts?
I'm okay with it, and then I have a question for Mr. Burns.
Go ahead.
Okay, obviously then that the state, I guess, has to come up with their rules and regulations, so I'm guessing, my personal guess is they're going to probably do it like a liquor license, which is issued through the state. And, you know, I think that's the way, and then we go from there. If they've been issued the license, then we wouldn't have any other recourse. I think that was part of the thing is, I mean, anybody can get a beer and wine license, but it's harder to get a liquor license. So I'm guessing that might be the way the legislature goes, so I mean.
And yeah, I think you're exactly right, Councilman Marler. And this issue, Panama City is actually in the process of finalizing theirs. I think it's up for second reading next week. And this issue actually, there was a presentation at the last city council meeting by a group that was trying to get the city to go ahead and come up with its own regulatory framework. So after that meeting, I went and did some research. Actually, I did a seminar actually on land use law that, and one of the issues they covered in it was marijuana ordinances, and they just simply boiled it up. It took them an hour to do this. They said every municipality and county should go and enact a moratorium right now and just let the state come up with their ordinances, which should be about 6 months from now, 7 months from now. And I believe Panama City's is in effect till July 1st, and I would recommend that's probably the framework we do a moratorium till July 1st, and then the state will have its framework in place. And like you were saying, I think right now there actually is a regulatory framework that the state has in place for all the existing marijuana dispensaries. I think there's 6 that are licensed in the entire state, and I think it's kind of interesting. They actually have a way they can sublease, so those 6 groups can actually give their own licenses out. But and that was actually one of those groups that was here last time. That's what they were trying to present. But I think the state's going to maybe take some of that restraint off, and so that's something to keep in mind. But I believe the staff had indicated they've already been approached by at least one person inquiring for a business tax receipt, and so I think a moratorium would protect staff, so they could just say there's a moratorium in place.
Do you need a motion on that, or just a consensus?
Consensus, and we'll come back with a proposed ordinance at the next meeting. So.
Thank you. The next item is just an announcement. I wanted to let the council know that in the course of 1 week, a NERDA grant became available, staff became aware of the available grant, and I'm so proud of staff. In the matter of a week, they were able to pull together the detailed information needed to apply for this NERDA grant for the Joe's Bayou expansion. So the total project cost that we're asking for is roughly $4.48 million to create the master plan to include infrastructure and a living shoreline improvement, site preparation for construction, infrastructure construction, and living shoreline implementation. If we are awarded this grant, it will come back to council for council to approve to accept the award. And if the master plan is part of the grant award, then that will be the opportunity for the council to work with a engineering firm, which we would have to go out to RFP for, to then talk about the details of what the infrastructure for Joe's Bayou expansion would look like. One of the most important aspects, though, of this grant is the restoration of the living shoreline in the surrounding area of Joe's Bayou to bring it back to its original condition with the seagrass and redfish and crabs and oyster beds and the whole 9 yards. So we're very excited, and we're keeping our fingers crossed on that. The Christmas parade was mentioned several times. I just want to remind folks that it is Saturday, December 10th, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. starting at Main Street and Highway 98. And then the very last item is, there was a discussion earlier about having the services of an interim land use attorney for those quasi-judicial issues. In speaking with Mr. Burns, I do not believe that we would need the services of an interim land use attorney for quasi-judicial. That would be in excess of $15,000. So based on our procurement rules, if the council desires, in the meantime, staff could get quotes for interim land use attorneys and then bring that back for approval at the very next meeting, if council is agreeable. Okay, and that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Comments from audience? Y'all have sat here this long? No
I got
comments?
one.
Oh, okay, Mr. Marlar?
She felt, we failed to mention the boat parade is also on December 11th. I think it starts at 6, and that's through the Destin Fishing Museum also. So they're helping with part of that, so I hope everybody will attend that too.
All righty, well, thank you. If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.